Eventide Entertainment presents The Drive-In, hosted by Aaron Lopez. All right, everybody. Thanks for coming back. Welcome to another episode of The Drive-In. I am your host, Aaron Lopez. And this week I am joined by my good friend, Carly. She has been a friend for actually like a couple years now, theater friend, as many of my guests are, but we're excited to have her on, first time guest host. So Carly, thanks for coming on to this week.
Thanks for having me.
This week's movie that we're checking out, guys, is Pacific Rim Uprising, starring John Boyega, Charlie Day, Scott Eastwood, and newcomer Kaylee Spaney. I think I'm saying her name right. If I'm not, somebody correct me. But yeah, Carly, we were looking at getting you on to the show, and I'd mentioned, like, hey, you want to go see Isle of Dogs? You're like, oh, yeah, that might be fun. And I'm like, it's either that or Pacific Rim Uprising. You're like, Pacific Rim.
So,
what's your excitement from Pacific Rim?
To be fair, I work with dogs. So I see dogs all day. And a movie about my work is maybe not ideal. But a movie about giant monsters and robots fighting it out is my heart and soul.
Like, I guess I made the assumption that I'm like, dogs, Carly, yeah, but I completely see that. It's like, you wouldn't want me to, I would not be excited to go see a movie about teaching. I'm like, because I would just be like nitpicking all the bad things that would be going on with it. Yeah, no, I'm excited. This will be really cool. I actually have had a lot of people mentioning Pacific Rim as one of those movies that they need to go and see, or they were way behind. Mike Shea has been on a couple times, and each time he's mentioned how Pacific Rim is one of those movies he was really late on. What was your first reaction when you saw the first one?
So I loved the first one. To put this in perspective, my very favorite films of all time are the Fast and Furious franchise.
Okay.
So I love overwrought explosions with a melodramatic, like, we're family and the family we choose storyline behind it.
When you get that with the Pacific Rim.
It's everything I want.
That's great. Yeah, I remember watching it, and I don't remember. I know I didn't see it and it was in theaters. I saw it probably about a year after it came out. I was a little far behind, but not like as far back as like just recently seeing it. But I loved it. I grew up. My dad is a huge Godzilla fan, so like when Godzilla came out, I saw all those. And he just gets into all of the the older Godzillas, the newer Godzilla movies. And so kind of that concept of the kaiju and this idea of monsters from the deep and all this.
So I just remembered, I actually ran away from home in the 4th grade because my mom wouldn't let me see Godzilla 2000. And I wanted to see it so badly, but I was 12 and it was a PG-13 movie.
That's Godzilla 2000. I forgot about that one.
I
always remember the Matthew Broderick one.
Wait. Was it the Matthew Broderick?
Matthew Broderick was like 97. Godzilla 2000.
That would be Godzilla 2000. I did get to see in theaters.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it was the Matthew Broderick that I ran away from home for.
Well, and that one, it was worth running away from. I love that movie.
It was very good.
So cheesy and good in all the late 90s style of movie ways.
Yes.
Just everything seems to fit. The soundtrack is pretty good. But it's very 90s. Very, very 90s. But yeah, so like I've been excited to see the second one. Going into it, I was kind of not sure what to expect, just because I saw 2 trailers. The first trailer made it seem like I didn't have to go see the movie because it seemed like they gave away everything, all the cool parts. And the second one kind of built it up a little bit more. Like there was a rogue. They really kind of talked more about the rogue Yeager, which they didn't show in the first one. I was excited to see that, so I think that helped.
I didn't see that one at all.
That one made me a little bit more excited about it, but I don't know. I continuously talk about this on the show where I hate watching trailers anymore because they give away too much. Trailers don't tease anymore. So, yeah. I don't know.
I saw the first trailer and it showed me that there were going to be more monsters and more robots, and I was in.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing with this type of movie. You know what you're getting when you go in. You're not expecting a character arc that is something that is going to like pull in your heartstrings and make you really feel things. You're just gonna, like you said, see things that explode, monsters, robots. There you go. There's your tagline.
That's all I want.
All right, let's get into the trailers. So, For the first time in a long time here in Ohio, we did not have 7. We had 6, but we had 6 trailers. We had Tag, Uncle Drew, Action Point, I Feel Pretty, Skyscraper, and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. A lot of these were new for me. There's 3 of them that I had not seen before, which usually I only get like 1 or 2. Were any of the ones that you saw tonight a standout for you? Something you're excited to go see?
I really expected to hate Tag, but every moment of the trailer ended up buying me back in. I really wanted to see that now. I Feel Pretty seems like something that is going to tickle my funny bone. I like the reversal of the suddenly you see people for what they are on the inside trope, or these like suddenly your body has changed
like
trope.
13 going on 30, that style. Yeah.
I love like 13 going on 30, some Mark Ruffalo, but
no, I like the concept of I Feel Pretty because it's, it's one of those things that you do not see the idea of accepting your body happen, especially from a female's perspective, in Hollywood very often. Mm-hmm. They either ignore it or they go the opposite route. They don't usually go the route that you see in I Feel Pretty.
Well, and you'll see in teen movies and in rom-coms where they try to do that, but they're doing it with someone who fits all conventional beauty standards, and they just take off her glasses, and suddenly
she puts her hair up.
Yeah, which there was a wonderful character hair transformation in the movie that I do want to talk about for Pacific Rim. Very important.
Yep.
But we'll get to that.
Yeah, I'm with you there on Tag. I'd seen some Facebook trailers, and I hadn't watched them because I just was like, I'm done watching trailers unless I have to see them. But now that I've seen this, the cast looks awesome. It looks really funny. Mm-hmm. Does it look like it's going to be one of the best comedies I've ever seen? Yeah, it looks funny. I'm excited to see Tag. And it's a concept, like, seriously, we've never seen something like this before. Like, we've seen, like, buddy comedies, but, like, this style, I don't know. Action Point, I'm excited for. I told you, I leaned over to Carly during the trailers, and I'm like, all right, I love Jackass. Like, I was one of those kids that would sneak down to their friends' basements with MTV and watch Jackass growing up. And I think it's kind of cool because they tried to do this with Bad Grandpa, mm-hmm. where it was kind of like an actual storyline plot, but it still was filmed in the way of the Jackass, like, second camera kind of a thing. But mm-hmm. this one actually seems like it's a movie, but all the stunts are Jackass stunts. Like a real good production value movie. Reminded me of, like, Adventureland. Like that.
Yes,
that
a lot
feel.
like that. I find it a lot more tempting than I found Bad Grandpa.
It was not very good. It was good. Bad Grandpa was good for some laughs. It was stupid.
Yeah. I'd rather just watch old Jackass episodes if I'm going to see that. But no, that looked like a lot of fun. I am definitely going to want to go see Skyscraper because seeing Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in Die Hard.
That's what it is.
Yeah, it's an everyman trying to save his family in a tower that was designed by an Asian person when things got out of hand.
And I love, too, you can't just put Dwayne Johnson in that role because it would be a very short movie. You have to take a leg. So he's got a prosthetic leg.
I have some thoughts about that.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think it's an interesting twist, but still, like, immediately at the end of the trailer, you see how it's going to come into play, mm-hmm. and I don't know.
It does bother me to have a non-disabled actor playing a disabled character.
Yeah.
It's just a problem.
Yeah, I don't. I agree completely with that because I think that there's so many actors and actresses in Hollywood that you don't need to make somebody something they're not. Mm-hmm. I can see where they're coming from because they want an action hero.
Yeah,
but then don't make him disabled.
The face value.
Yeah, you don't need him to have a prosthetic leg when he's very clearly able to do anything he wants. And the reason why he's able to do all the stunts and do all that is because he has 2 working legs.
Yes.
And he's jacked as shit because he's Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Well,
so.
And you see pictures of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson because he's, I think, a phenomenal human being.
Yeah, he's a great guy. I love what he does.
On Facebook, he'll post pictures with, like, disabled I can't say that word. Veterans.
There it is.
Who are jacked as shit.
Yeah.
We can curse, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're fine. We throw the F-bomb around a couple times. We'll have to just put an E on it, but otherwise we're
okay. Good. I'll try to rein myself in. But, like, he will post those pictures on Facebook, and so I'm like, I have seen you next to someone who is the character.
Yeah.
Who is a disabled person who could do all of the action movie things. Mm-hmm. So can we audition those people some more?
Yeah. Well, I can see Hollywood's kind of worry. Where, what was it? 1517 to Paris, where they got the actual guys. That movie bombed so bad. Like, you need actors.
Yeah, you need actors.
But there's actors out there.
There are plenty of disabled actors.
Yeah.
Because it's not based on a true story. Like,
exactly.
That was a cool concept, but the guys aren't actors.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's... I want to go see the movie. I'm excited about the movie.
It'll be a good movie. It'll be a good action movie.
But I do have a big problem with that element of the movie.
Yeah, and speaking of action movies, Jurassic World.
Chris Pratt's so pretty.
I don't know how to feel about this one. I was so excited, like little schoolboy excited about the first one. Jurassic World, like that. I was so excited for it to come back. This one, I just don't care as much. I don't know if it's just that the trailers haven't been doing what they need to do, or if the storyline just feels like it's the Lost World Part 2. I just don't feel as drawn into it as the first one did.
I think the first one was kind of a letdown, and so you don't have the same initial excitement going in of maybe they're doing it right this time.
Yeah, that's true.
It not exactly the same, but imagine if Force Awakens was coming out right after Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah. And
you're like, okay, it's a different team, but they've already tried to do something. And
I am excited that Goldblum's back. Oh, I was a little let down that he didn't make his appearance in the first.
I'm excited in a different way than you that Goldblum is back.
He's so funny. Like, he barely... It's funny, like, nowadays, anytime you see him in a movie or a TV show, he's just himself. Mm-hmm. He doesn't even have to act anymore. He's just, they get him to be this...
He looks like he's having the best time.
Oh, yeah. He put his work in. He was the Fly. You know, yeah. he did what he needed to do, and now he just gets to show up, get paid, and say lines.
Yeah.
So, I am excited he's in it. I don't know how much he'll have in the role, or in the actual movie itself, but guarantee you he will be all over the place in their marketing, because it's Jeff Goldblum.
I think we have seen in the trailer exactly as much as he's in the film.
Yeah, I don't expect a whole lot out of it.
But Chris Pratt's pretty, so...
Yeah.
And it looks like they gave Bryce Dallas Howard, is that her name?
Yeah, Bryce Dallas Howard.
Yeah, it looks like they gave her some actual shoes she can run in.
I still think that was just the stupidest thing.
Yeah.
And they called attention to it in the movie of how dumb it was, but they didn't do anything about it.
Yeah. It was bad.
Bad writing there.
Yeah.
Alright, so let's get to the spoiler-free summary. This is your spoiler-free summary for Pacific Rim Uprising. Jake Pentecost, son of Stacker Pentecost from the first movie, reunites with Mako Mori to lead a new generation of Yeager pilots, including rival Lambert and 15-year-old hacker Amara, against a new kaiju threat. That's your spoiler-free summary. And trust me, if we got any further in, we'd be giving you some spoilers. So we don't want to do that. If you want to listen to us, I've been hearing more and more people just like to hear us talk, who don't really care that they're not going to go see the movie, but they want to know about the movie and if it was good, and just kind of hear the awesome conversation that me and my guest host have. So if you are one of those people, disregard, and we will talk to you again in a little bit. If you are not one of those people and you haven't seen Pacific Rim Uprising, and you don't want spoilers, this is your time to pause and come back in a couple hours after you see the movie, and we'll give you a quick little break down to do that. Alright, so you've been warned. Everybody, at this point in time, we've got some spoilers, and we've got plenty of them, because there's like many movies like this, there are not levels. It goes straight into it. And so that's what we should do. Carly, what did you think? Right into it, what were your first thoughts of how this movie started off?
There was John Boyega, which I like, and I was anticipating Robots and Monsters, which I like. So it started really strong for me. I liked it. It opened up with a party John Boyega.
Which is funny. I love that little opener.
Oh, he was a delight. He looks like he was having so much fun.
Well, I was just happy to hear him talking in his normal voice.
Oh my god.
That made me so happy.
Such a fitting casting choice to follow Idris Elba. Just vocally, it sounded like he learned to talk from Idris Elba. Yeah. Like, when you hear parental vocal patterns in the kids,
that's awesome.
It was wonderful.
Well, it just seems like so often we get actors and actresses who have to Americanize their voices. You know, no accents, and then you hear him and you're like, oh my god, I did not know. I didn't know, and I don't remember his name. I should probably know this, but the black actor on Walking Dead who plays Morgan,
Never watched it.
He has the most traditional American voice in that show, and then you hear him for the first time and he's British as hell.
Well, it's because immigrants are taking all our jobs.
They're taking them all. Forget the wall. We need to put up a fence around the Atlantic Ocean.
Just get more sharks.
Get some sharks, and but it's one of those things that it was a breath of fresh air to when he started talking, and I was like, oh, good. Like, I probably should have gotten it from the trailer, but I didn't. And yeah, I love that opener with him. It was pretty cool. He did say, like, talking about his dad, and he's like, but I'm not like my dad at all, and he's dancing. My favorite part is, as he's going through and explaining his way of living, he sells Jaeger parts and just pretty much anything he can get his hands on the black market. Yeah. But the funny thing is he's not selling his stuff for money. He's trading his stuff for Captain Crunch, Oreos, and cases of sriracha. Just glorious. I thought that was hilarious.
Yep. The snacks come back later.
They do. So he goes and he did you ever watch the Starz Spartacus series?
I didn't.
The guy that John Boyega's character, Jake, is stealing parts, and he talks about, you know, if you can get your hands on things that other people can't, you're going to live well. And then he says, you know, as long as you stay out of, you know, the places like the the DDPC, which I still can't remember what that stands for, but like Pacific People Protecting. Yeah. The
Jaeger military.
The Jaeger military base, essentially, yes. And they cut into it, and the guy that he's stealing for played one of the main characters in the first season.
Oh.
And I was like, I have not seen him in anything, but he was such an asshole, and he was a very fitting character. Like, he's a small bit role in this, but I was like,
I wonder if he's typecast and hard to work with.
He just has that face of, like, he's weaselly, you want to punch him in the face. So that was cool. I don't remember his name because I've only seen him now in 2 things, but it was a cool callback. But yeah, so he goes to look for this power core, and it's not there. But and I don't know what this piece of technology was that he had, but he has this like phone-looking radar thing that's like, oh, the power core's nearby, it's moving now. Which to me that was very cheesy writing. Yeah,
it was bad. It was a fun tool to get him where he needed to go in the plot, but it did not make any sense that technology would be able to track the thing he is looking for
and talk. It was like Siri. It was like talking to him.
Yeah, she said like, target is moving now, and it's like, okay, what has he targeted about this? Explain anything?
Well, I'm like, why do they need him if that technology's out there?
Yeah,
like these guys were like trying to get him to do it.
Is this a special tool he has created himself?
Maybe. I don't know.
That would lend some cool depth to his character, but we didn't get that.
No, what we get instead is basically a young thief who we later find out is one of our main characters, Amara, who has stolen it right from under him and gets away scot-free from the military base. We never find out how the military finds out where her warehouse was. But
I think his sister has him chipped.
Probably. Maybe. That would make sense.
Again, I am already writing fan fiction in my head to explain all of the plot holes.
There was a lot.
There was a lot, but I'm good at writing fan fiction.
Oh, the fan fiction. Well, as long as it stays PG-13, we'll be okay.
Fan fiction always fills holes.
And we're already past PG-13 with that statement alone.
What? Plot holes?
Yeah,
What?
plot holes. What are we talking about here? Get your head out of the gutter. But yeah, so he goes and follows Amara, the thief, who we find out very quickly after he gets there, to this warehouse, and we see this smaller Jaeger, which let's just acknowledge the fact that these things are called Jaeger. Is there, and I don't know, is there a kind of a translation or a significance to that?
Hunter.
Is it mean hunter?
It means hunter.
Okay,
yeah.
so then what does Jagermeister mean?
It's like the forest master, the gamekeeper, and so the Jagermeister was what you drank to stay warm when you were out being the hunter.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yes.
Because I'm just, every time I listened to them say Jaeger, I was thinking of college, and I almost threw up a little.
Everyone's had a bad night.
I don't remember the comedian who said this, but this is not my own joke. He said that, I think it's actually Gabriel Iglesias, who said there's only one liquor that sounds the way it tastes, and it's Jaeger, and it's because you're gonna vomit, and it does.
So worse than Jaeger. I never had a bad Jaeger night, but there is an off-brand liquor called Schwarzhog, the black pig.
I was gonna say, yeah. Where's the translation of that one?
Yes, and ooh boy, I had a rough night with a coffee mug of Schwarzhog playing Arkham Horror.
That, yeah.
And now I can't drink Jaeger, which is decidedly better than Schwarzhog.
Yeah, I remember that was like one of my. I'd start the night with a Jager Bomb. I don't know why. It's like you start the night with a Jager Bomb, you're guaranteeing yourself a bad time. And not like, I didn't work myself up to that bad decision. I started my night on a bad decision.
At least if you start there, you know where it's gonna end.
Exactly.
You're not fooling yourself.
I'm not gonna let my night go up to chance. I'm gonna force it down the shitter immediately by my own hand.
Oh, that's all of college.
Oh, that's bad. All right, so the back onto the plot. So the Jaeger, it's the smaller one. We find out very quickly its name is Scrapper.
It's so cute.
It looks kind of like the Pacific Rim version of Bumblebee.
Yes.
I kind of got that vibe.
And then when it would roll, it reminded me of BB-8, which made me happy.
John Boyega, and you're like,
yes. It's very precious.
Where's Oscar Isaac at?
Why won't they kiss? Oh.
We got time. There's still another. Yeah. There's still one more. But yeah, so and there's this fight. There's not great extra acting, honestly. There's one part where as the girl Amara gets into Scrapper, Boyega gets in there as well, and they're like, oh hey, we're gonna get out of here. They show the outside of the warehouse, and the extras are already running away, and then it explodes. Ooh. So no sound, at least, as far as the final production, editing, we didn't know anything was going to bust out of that other than the fact that we knew that's what was going to happen.
So in my fan fiction, the ground was shaking.
There you go.
Okay, but no, there was no indication that there was a Jaeger in there.
Yeah, and these guys are bolting. They are running.
Maybe they had the same sensor John Boyega had.
Your tracking device is showing this is coming at you at an alarming rate.
A friendly, non-intimidating robot voice has told you.
Yeah, and I don't know, like, this opener was fun, as far as this, like, first battle. It wasn't really a battle. It was like a chase scene mixed with...
It was hardcore parkour robot.
It was. Parkour robot. Parkour. Yeah, it was, because this thing is, like, jumping around everything, and then it starts to, like, roll up into a ball, and that doesn't make it faster. It didn't seem like... It just made it more maneuverable.
It makes it ping pong around, and it was a good billiards visual.
And it was important to show that it could do that because it was like kind of this idea of like it fit into tight spaces, and it was a lot smaller, so
nimble.
Yeah. It's just this like it gave it a flexibility that you wouldn't get with a normal Jaeger.
Yeah, very maneuverable. I don't think they made full use of that.
I agree. I don't think they did.
And especially with how cute it was. Like, that's good marketing, guys. Use the cute robot.
I don't remember seeing Scrapper in any of the trailers. I remember seeing the 4 large ones that we see at the end.
Did they show a shot of it going into the, like, sphere form? I think there might have been one shot of
I'm not
that.
sure.
But I am not... I may just be having implanted memories because I just saw that happen.
But yeah, you're right. Like, it made sense that, because like for me it was the Bumblebee. It was like the quick like little quirky robot that had an atmosphere of like, hey, this would be fun to be like in this because you're rolling around in it as opposed to like almost awkwardly lumbering around in these huge ones.
Well, and there was a cute line before the robot went. Sorry, they're not robots. They're mechs. They're something.
I can't remember what they called them. Like mechs.
Yeah, mechs.
Yeah. We can call them robots. People,
right.
If people are upset by us calling them robots, then that's probably the worst thing that they're gonna be upset about. We're good.
Okay.
We'll call them robots.
All right.
Robots versus aliens. Just cowboys versus aliens, and yeah, we're losing it here. We're losing it.
Sorry, I get distracted. When the robot is about to go into its sphere form, there's the cute line about, hold on, I am holding on. And that needed more of a callback. It was such a cute moment.
They didn't draw on the relationship between these two as deeply as they could with Jake and Amara. You get a very strong concept early on that they both are like kind of like kindred spirits. Although they come from two very different backgrounds, he comes from a military family, and she's just this regular kid that we find out later who's been orphaned. But there's really no reason why they should have anything in common. But they're very passionate about what they do, and they don't like to quit, and they're fighters. But they never really they played it up as much as they were going to, but they could have gone into a lot more.
It was definitely very well set up that they were two war orphans who were fighting against the identity that the war gave them.
Yeah.
And so she was fighting against her victimhood, and he was fighting against being his father's son.
Yeah.
And then they didn't really... They set up those two, and then they didn't really draw the line between them.
Yeah, I mean, by the end, like, there's nothing. It's, like, he's very protective of her, but it doesn't seem like it's her that he's protective of. It just seems like he would be protective of anybody that would be in that position with him. So, yeah.
Is that a John Boyega thing? Because in Force Awakens, when he just kind of latches on to Rey...
It might be. Has he been in anything other than these two?
He has, but I don't think I've seen it.
Because these are the only two things that I can remember. He's Finn, and now he's Jake. I don't.
He's that one
Jake
show
and Finn.
I don't watch. Yeah.
Adventure Time. I don't know why I know that because I've never seen an episode. But it's this weird little back and forth between I don't know which one it was. Like, it was something Alpha. It's like pretty much the biggest, most powerful Yeager.
The one
comes
that
out.
Looks like a police vehicle.
Yes.
Designed
all blue.
Yep.
Yep. And it shows up, and literally it's like a full-grown adult and a toddler. Like, the size difference is huge, and then you have this, like, chase scene back and forth. And eventually, it looks like they're going to get away from the larger Jaeger by using one of the power cores, but then immediately, like, it's fine. It shoots barbs into it and shocks it, and then they walk out and they're under arrest.
There's about a 10-second turnaround between, we made it, this scrappy little thing is so good, and no, the law won.
Yeah. And then very quickly, we have them in a jail cell together. They're talking back and forth. We get this is one of those moments where they were setting up. They're setting up this banter of them not really getting along, but both of them kind of being very similar in nature. But at this point, it's where it just takes a very quick turn. There were about 3 or 4 sharp shifts in this movie. And this is the first one. Boyega's character goes into a interrogation room, and we see his sister. Is it Mako or Mako? I think it's Mako Mori.
I think it's Mako, yeah.
Okay, so Mako Mori, his sister from the first movie, who we know her from the first movie. She's there, but she's there in hologram form, and saying basically you have a choice. You can either you've got priors. this is not good that you were caught in stolen Jaeger tech. And she says you can either go to jail or you can come back to the group. You can be a ranger. You can train these new pilots in the Jaeger Corps. And he's like, all right, fine, I will. He's not, like, thrilled about it, but it's either that or jail. And he's like, all right, fine, he goes. Mm-hmm. And then we are in the Shatter Dome, which I still think is, like, one of the most kick-ass names you can do. It's like the Thunderdome, but with Jaegers. And this is where we see kind of the build-up of Scott Eastwood's character as Lambert, who he's like the tough guy who doesn't like the guy coming back, and also she was a minor character, but the love interest that was just it was awkward every time they came on screen. I'm trying to see if I can find her name, but she was not
Reyes was
Reyes.
The character's name because that's a character in the Fast and Furious franchise. And
she almost looked like her too.
She did.
Like, not the same actress,
not at all,
but definitely resemblance.
Like,
there's a
Reyes?
resemblance.
Are you a cousin?
Yeah, maybe they're well.
All right,
we're gonna
in my crossover fan fiction.
You're gonna find out that it's Jules Reyes. See it here. Jules Reyes and Fast and Furious Reyes. They're actually distant, not so distant cousins.
Yeah.
She runs around in Yeager mechanical monster robots, and the other Reyes runs around in stolen cars.
Yep.
Yeah, makes sense.
It's perfect. It lines up really well. But yeah, she was very much not necessary.
Not at all. She didn't even really create any tension between the two, like she was meant to.
No, she seemed not to care. She seemed interested in both of them, but maybe interested in both of them at the same time. Didn't want to choose.
The last time I remember seeing her, this is right as you were leaving, so I don't know if you saw it, but she kisses Eastwood's character.
I saw it.
And then she kisses Boyega, and he's like, that's not confusing at all. And that's literally the last time I remember seeing her.
I honestly, after her first appearance, I expected her to die as a motivator for both of the men, as she never chose between us, so we'll both save the world together.
Yeah. She was pointless. Literally a pointless character. Mm-hmm. Had no point to anything. Caused maybe a little bit of a jealousy thing, but not enough that they didn't play off of it at all.
No. They never really seemed jealous of each other.
No, very quickly, Eastwood's character kind of accepted him for who he was.
Yeah, well,
and very quickly.
Boyega had very early on the line about how handsome Eastwood is, so...
Yeah. I loved the almost improvised feel that a lot of his lines felt. Like, he just got to be kind of cheeky. Like, just a little bit, throw a little camp into a sci-fi action movie.
He felt very off the cuff constantly. It was very nice.
As we get to the Shatter Dome, we find out that there's a new major threat to the Jaeger corporation, and it is Shao Industries and their new drone program. Charlie Day, one of my favorite people ever, most favorite people. He's kind of a scientist, head scientist of this program. And his connection from the past movie is that he knows, they even refer to it in this movie, he knows kaiju biology better than anybody else. So that's why he's there, is because kind of they're utilizing his knowledge. And the problem that I felt with this, though, is this huge drone threat, other than the twist in plot, really never felt like a threat to me.
They touched a little bit on, is this actually secure technology? Can they be hacked? Can they be turned against us? To indicate kind of, early in the film, you have the idea that people are building their own Jaegers.
Yes.
And so there is the idea that people are utilizing Jaeger technology for not good ends.
Yeah.
And so the idea that someone would hack drone Jaegers, but really it wants the conflict of the film to be automation versus human.
Yeah.
It's very much they're automating the factory and we're losing our jobs.
They took our job.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just felt like it could have gone. I mean, for the plot, if I'm looking at the plot alone, it makes sense because there are 2 or 3 moments where the drone situation comes into play that drives the plot forward. But they made it seem like it's this big presentation, and they were all very upset, and they're just like, "Oh, this is horrible! Like, oh, this I don't like this." Yeah. But it just didn't feel like it was really a threat.
There wasn't a lot of clarity on how the piloting system for the drones worked, because there was still pilots linked to the drones,
remote pilots, yeah.
But it seemed like the conflict was that whereas Jaegers take 2 pilots to drift with each other, because to pilot a Jaeger it takes more neural interface, they were able to link a large number of pilots at a remote location to have the power to drift just the drones that they needed at any given time.
Yeah.
But then it all went.
It went to shit quick,
real
too.
Quick.
Like, we're not there yet, but when we get there, man, that really did. Oh, wow. So before we kind of continue with the plot, because this doesn't really matter, the scene that we see, but we have to talk about it.
It doesn't really matter.
You're like, which scene? There's like 20 scenes that don't matter. This is before, or actually, no, this is after, but we're going to jump ahead. This is after the Sydney situation, because it doesn't fit anywhere else, because we're talking about Charlie Day's character, Newt, and Li Wen, who is kind of the swerve bad guy. She seems very maniacal throughout the movie until we find out she's not.
Because she has her hair pulled back in a scary business lady way.
Yes. She is a woman with power. Women with power will misuse it.
She's controlled. She won't touch other people. She doesn't like shaking hands. You can see she is frigid. She's wearing all white. She doesn't touch the man who tries to touch her, and her hair's pulled back real tight.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure isn't that how Hilary lost?
I was about to say it's how Bryce Dallas Howard started off
Jurassic
World.
It is.
It was that transition of she has very put together hair.
To by the end her hair's down and she's got a smudge on her face, so now she's gritty.
Well, it doesn't even just come down. So this is much later in the plot. I'm jumping ahead, but by the time she's helping, her hair comes down and gains texture. It's not straight anymore. Her hair is wavy now.
It's because there's humidity in the air. The Tokyo air has gained humidity through all the fire explosions that are happening. But yeah, so talking about Newt and Charlie Day, he comes home from work, and we're both involved with Rock of Ages, which if you're not familiar with Rock of Ages, it's a musical. It's a jukebox musical. It talks about 80s, basically uses a bunch of 80s music that already exists, Journey, Poison, and Pat Benatar and all that, and it turns it into a plot, gives it a plot. Well, one of the songs that is utilized is I Want to Know What Love Is. And I Want to Know What Love Is playing in the background as he is walking into his apartment. And I was expecting his wife to be like cheating on him or something. No, he goes to his room and there's a Kaiju Brain that has been named Alice. There's like lipstick on the tank, Alice. And he links up with it, and he's drifting it, and basically seizing or orgasming. I don't know.
A little bit of both.
A little bit at column A, a little bit at column B. It's really weird, but the fact of the matter is we cannot escape these songs. They are everywhere in our life right now. And so we get some I Want to Know What Love Is, and I just was laughing. Yeah. I didn't immediately hear it. I kind of heard like tones, and I was like, is that?
It's got a slow build.
It does.
And, it definitely changed the tone of that scene for me.
And again, like, if you've seen the first movie, you knew he had a connection to, through the drifting with Kaiju Brain. And it was for fun. The scene had no real impact on the plot, but it was funny. So going back a little bit, Mako and the Shao Industries are basically deciding if they need to move ahead with the drones, if they're ready, like you had said. They're not sure if it's ready yet or if it's hackable, and they're going to basically make this huge announcement after a vote in Sydney, and it seems like they're going to.
Well, Mako is the deciding vote.
Yes, that's correct.
And so she has a long conversation with John Boyega about whether or not she thinks it's the right thing. And so I got the read that she was still really on the fence and was the one threat to Shao Industries.
Yeah, and so it makes sense when she is, because she asks John Boyega to basically, can you back me up?
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of stress, and I'm a little nervous because there's a lot, like people, it would make sense for people to not be happy with me on both sides, either for or against. I'm going to make a decision, and someone's going to be upset.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, yeah, sure, I got your back. But he's also kind of hoping that she says yes, because then he won't have to be there anymore training anybody, because you will no longer have cadets. You'll have these people who are remotely accessing. Mm-hmm. So we get to Sydney, Australia, and there's this announcement, and almost immediately after the Jaeger is dropped, we see like these flocks of birds. It's like in every natural disaster movie, as soon as you see the birds going away, you're like, oh, something bad's going to happen.
Or in Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park. Here we go. We're full circle now. And a rogue Jaeger attacks. I thought it was going to be a kaiju. So there was a little bit of a spin there.
Yeah.
I was swerved. And it later gets named as Obsidian Fury, which I just have to laugh at these names. They are so overly dramatic. We had, I can't remember all of them, but I know we had Obsidian Fury. We had Gypsy Avenger.
Which the Gypsy is a callback to fighter planes.
Yes, that is true.
So that one at least.
I'm trying to see if I can find any
but
of the other
others,
ones.
Because there is a fan scene when they arrive at the base where they go through and see all of these famous Jaegers and give all of their names and their stats. It's a great rundown of...
Oh, and it's kind of cool. Like, I'm excited about, like, all right, yeah. Let me see if I can find them all, because,
it preps you
there's
because
a
you know you're
bunch
going to get to see all of them fight.
Yeah, and it preps you, exactly. It preps you up for that. Here we go. We have...
that's the Green Ranger. He has a flute.
It felt like, realistically, and I was explaining to Jordan, my wife, about kind of like what Pacific Rim, because I don't think she's seen it, but I'm like, I kind of like it. I think it's a fun element of a movie that, you basically, you take a lot of Japanese influence and you make it into like, they're not trying to make a Japanese style movie American, but they take a lot of Japanese influences into their own concept. And that's why I like the first one so much. But that was one of those things where it's like, it's basically Power Rangers.
Yes.
Like, more or less.
Power Rangers was Japanese footage edited and cut in with American teens. So that's what I want.
Which actually, you probably know this, but fun fact, if you look at the fight scenes...
Yellow Ranger?
Yellow Ranger. So Carly clearly knows. If you are a Power Ranger fan, so if you look at the fight scenes where they're all in their Power Ranger outfits, there's only one of the Power Rangers, the Pink Ranger, who's wearing a skirt. The Yellow Ranger is not wearing a skirt, because in the Japanese version, the Yellow Ranger was a man.
It was a boy.
It was a boy, yes. Well, they're all, very young little boy.
But he was like a little boy who was a mischievous, like, dick to everyone.
But it's funny because you expect... I remember watching it and having never noticed it until someone brought attention to it, or I think I saw it on like a Facebook, like top 10 things you didn't know about Power Rangers.
I definitely saw it in a Cracked article.
Yeah, that might have been where I saw it, honestly. I didn't know that, so there you go. There's your fun fact for Power Rangers. And actually, I will be making another Power Rangers reference shortly. But yeah, we have Obsidian Fury shows up. Oh, and by the way, so here's some of your others. I did find them. We have Obsidian Fury, who is unknown classification. Our other Mark 6 style Jaegers, though, Guardian Bravo, Titan Redeemer, Gypsy Avenger, Saber Athena, and November Ajax. Just like... And I don't understand.
November Ajax is the cop one.
Yes, right? Yes. So I don't know. Guardian Bravo, Titan Redeemer, Gypsy Avenger, and Saber Athena. Those are your four main ones that we see later on. And the only thing I remember is Titan Redeemer's huge, and basically it takes 3 people.
It takes 3 to pilot.
And it's the one with like the big mace. If you see in the trailer, it's got this huge like ball mace that is on a chain.
Morningstar, if it's on a chain, right?
Yes. Yes.
Sorry, let me push my nerd glasses up here.
Yeah. So, and then Saber Athena's the fast one. Basically, like, I hear every time I heard it, I was like, Saber-tooth tiger, go! Like, again, another power. That was not my Power Rangers reference, but it's just they're dripping in this movie.
It is very much for kids who grew up watching Power Rangers and are now adults.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So this fight happens, and Obsidian Fury just shows up and beats the shit out of Gypsy Avenger. Like, just, there's nothing that is stopping. I think it gets one good punch in, and the rest is just Obsidian Fury destroying
Dominating, totally.
Oh, and then it's got the two blades that are flaming. They are literally on fire.
You know what it reminded me of? The kid on the playground when you're playing, like, superheroes, and you're like, all right, I go super fast, and he's like, I have your speed times 2!
Yep.
You're like, all right, I have a giant mechanical sword, and he's like, I have 2, and they're on fire!
Yep.
That asshole.
And it was funny because, like, you see them pull out, they do their, like, action, and you get the sword, and then it pulls out 2, and you're like, well, they're fucked. You know, they're done. So, yeah, it was a very drawn-out battle, but basically Obsidian Fury is just plowing through.
Yeah.
And in the process of this, you see Mako Mori, who is in a helicopter. It goes down, and it crashes just literally out of the fingertips of Gypsy Avenger, and Jake gets out of the Jaeger and is running to his sister's crash site, thinking maybe, and then luckily, I mean, because otherwise the movie would have been very short, because Obsidian Fury is getting ready to just kill the rest of them. The other Jaegers show up, and it decides to go back into the ocean and leave.
So,
yeah.
Interesting thing about the entire very long fight in a metropolitan area. Every time there were bystanders that you could see their faces on screen, they were very careful to show you that these bystanders live. But the amount of office buildings it took out on a weekday.
Oh, yeah.
And that was every fight scene in the movie.
Buildings were high casualties.
They did such a careful job of showing you bystanders surviving, because I think the film wanted death to have an impact. If someone died on camera, it meant something.
Yeah.
But my God, they did a bad job saving anyone who wasn't a face.
Well, and that just reminds me, have you seen... there's a movie that just came... Well, it's not that. I think it's called Monster.
It's probably not called Monster, because
Colossal.
that's about a serial killer.
Colossal.
Okay.
It's about a monster. Have you seen... It's 2016. It has Anne Hathaway in it, and... it talks about that. So this is here's my little one. I saw it, I think, on Amazon. So if you guys have Amazon Prime, check it out.
Yeah, I do.
It's got Anne Hathaway, Jason Sudeikis, Tim Blake Nelson. If you saw Oh Brother Where Art Thou,
yes,
he's
I know
awesome.
Tim Blake Nelson.
And
he's a delight. He was in Kimmy Schmidt.
Kimmy Schmidt.
Yes.
Yep, he's in Holes. I loved him in Holes.
He's wonderful in everything.
He's great. But basically, it's this Anne Hathaway, and this is not an Anne Hathaway movie. Like, if you, like, you're like, oh, I don't like Anne Hathaway, so definitely watch this, because this is the exact opposite. She is this kind of party girl who finds out that she controls a monster, like a kaiju-style monster, that shows up in South Korea, and her actions when she gets blackout drunk, because she's a party girl, actually are what happens. And she notices, like, and this is not a spoiler, in the first 15, I mean, like, the movie trailer, everything makes it very clear that she is this monster, or at least she controls it through her actions. And it really talks about, without giving any major spoilers in it, it talks about the impact that collateral damage really truly has with these monster movies.
Yeah.
Where she literally, like, breaks down crying when she finds out that she fell down and killed... She immediately is asking how many people died, because she knew that she's the reason why. And so, yeah, it just immediately makes me think of that, because...
Even if there was no one in those buildings, how many people can't go to work on Monday? Are out of a job, can't feed their sick child because the office building got destroyed. And there are shots of the Jaegers with their swords out, running forward into battle, but their sword is just slicing through building after building.
Oh, they just like, don't care.
Why?
Yeah, that's the problem, is it's not just the kaiju that are doing this.
The good guys.
The good guys are doing this as well.
Like,
yeah.
They will smash through a building for dramatic effect.
Yeah, that's all it is. But as a result of this this attack, the drone program immediately gets deployed. It gets passed through, and this is where you start to see a little bit of a shift. Li Wen seems to be she mentions, this actually kind of was a positive because it showed everybody we need this.
And they did a good job because I thought she was the
yeah.
ultimate bad guy. I thought she had sent that rogue Yeager to attack to push her agenda.
Absolutely bought into that. They did sell that one pretty well.
I thought it was ham-fisted, her whole look and character, but I was going with it. It fit the movie.
You know, some of those, this is one of those movies that you would expect the stereotype.
Yeah.
If it's going to be there, it's going to happen. Okay. Like, you don't have a problem with it because you just know what they do.
I still get to see the robots and monsters fight, so the plot can be what it is.
So, we see this happen right before the helicopter goes down, but we don't find out about it until a little bit later. Mako sends out a kind of, not a distress signal, but she sends out a piece of data. She sends a communication out right before it goes down.
She's realized something, but the Jaeger is jamming her signal.
Yes. But with this, like, back flare thing that it does. Even though it's
spinal
not
column.
facing her.
No.
It's weird, yeah. So she sends out this signal, and it gets kind of decoded into this shape, and they're like, oh, that looks like kaiju. And so they look and see if it matches anything, and it doesn't. But it does match up with the shape of a mountain range in Siberia that is a former Jaeger Power Core factory.
Yep.
And so Boyega's character is like, I hope you don't mind if I go see what the heck is going on. And he's like, all right, yeah, go ahead. And so they go, like, and immediately they're in Siberia, and it's like, all right, cool.
They take Gypsy.
Not
just them.
Yeah, they're just, they hop an Uber over to Siberia. No, they get there, and almost immediately I take that back. They played it up a little bit. Eastwood's character's like, I guess it was a false lead. And he's like, oh, wait, I'm getting some movement. And then he's like, oh, incoming. And then there's a big fight between Obsidian Fury.
Obsidian Fury, which in the last fight was spectacularly OP.
Oh my god, just destroyed. Which I don't think really enough had happened for Eastwood and Boyega's character to be able to be like so on the same page. Literally nothing happened between them. Unless I'm forgetting something.
The ice cream scene was before that, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, that was before Sydney.
It was before Sydney.
So apparently they're on the same page now, because they fought, still got their...
Boyega had admitted how beautiful Eastwood is.
He did, but he didn't do it to Eastwood.
No. But he admitted it to himself, and in my fan fiction, that's important.
Hope you guys are writing all this down because you're gonna be hearing it soon.
Yeah.
We're gonna quiz you afterwards about what is the fan fiction going to be. But yeah, this time through, like here's one of my other big plot points that I hope your fan fiction addresses. This, like, I understand that Obsidian Fury destroys the plant, but why?
No, like, there is no explanation in the film reason as to why it is there, as to why Mako realized that location was involved in any way. There's no, like, we had hints that it might be up and running again. Nothing.
Something was in there, because there was some movement that was like, hey, no, we got some action. But that's it.
Yeah. And then he blew it up. And
then their fight went nowhere near it.
Yep. Yeah, just out on that Siberian ice, because all of Siberia is just ice.
Well, if you've ever seen a movie, you know that. Siberia is ice.
Did they read the Gulag Archipelago and think it was about an actual archipelago of islands?
Because, it seemed like...
it was on...
It was weird. So, okay, this fight happens, and then... And I don't know how... Okay, physics...
Physics
to me,
aren't a thing.
I don't know. I'm an English teacher, so I don't know math or science very well. But I know when you're falling down, you don't then all of a sudden go sideways when you crash out of something. Like, gravity falls down. It does not immediately take a leftward turn. And they crashed out.
When they were going down, they fell down a ravine.
Yeah, they're down this huge cavern, this ice cavern, and then all of a sudden they, like... were outside of it because they went sideways. I don't remember, like, them busting through. It just seemed like they kept falling down, and then they were out.
Yeah, I cannot recall how they got out of the ravine and back out onto ice.
Yeah, but they do. They're fighting. Going back and forth. And then they're like, remember our old move? And because they're getting destroyed. they decide that it's better to fall into water than to get destroyed. And it makes sense. So they go down into the water. They kind of trap the Obsidian Fury, and as they are charging at each other, they do basically any the most generic sword fight move of someone going high and them going low. I'm like, that's not your move. That's just sword fighting.
Run really fast up high, and then you slide under their sword.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I don't know. And that does enough damage for them to be able to literally punch its heart out. I don't know. It was very anticlimactic for how much Obsidian Fury destroyed them in Sydney. And it's not like they did research on it. They just gave it a name. That was the only difference.
So it was very satisfying in the terms of emotional impact.
Yes.
That killed his sister and he punched its heart out.
Yes. I liked it.
But it didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But it was satisfying.
And they rip off its face. They're like, who are you? And it's a blob. It's a brain.
Yep.
It's kaiju.
A little tentacle blob.
Yeah, so we find out Obsidian Fury is being controlled by a Kaiju Brain.
Which is what we just saw in, the previous scene in Newt's office.
Yes.
Or house.
Yeah.
That's Alice.
Yeah, Alice.
So,
we have our first kind of swerve, and at this point, things shift again. So I think this is a good time for us to take a quick little break. So go ahead. I know I need to. I don't know about you guys, but I need to use the restroom. I need to go to the lobby, refill my drink, grab some more popcorn, and we're going to see what's coming.
Jujubes.
She's going to grab some jujubes. She's been listening. She's been listening, guys. Go ahead and see what is coming up soon from Eventide.
If there's one thing that's true about wrestling fans, it's how much they like to talk about wrestling. Join Aaron Lopez and Ben Norsworthy for the Top Rope Wrestling Podcast.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Tune in every episode and be ringside as these two break down all of the big matches in the world of professional wrestling. Brought to you by Eventide Entertainment. You know, there's nothing quite as satisfying as a good conversation with intelligent company.
Join comedian Don Smith every week as he sits down and talks with comedians, actors, filmmakers, writers, and everyday schmoes. It's The Life with Don Smith, Wednesdays at noon on 106.9 FM, and now available on the Eventide Entertainment podcast feed every Friday on Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes.
Welcome back to the second half of this week's episode. We just gave you the quick rundown that Obsidian Fury was being controlled by a secondary Kaiju Brain, and this is where we kind of get a major shift. We were talking about these shifts, and for me, they kind of we've got Lieb, who is one of the scientists. Who I love the character. He's the most evil looking actor ever, though.
He looks like if you ever see Victorian taxidermy that is not good, where it's an exotic animal that they've never seen before alive, and they have to try to taxidermy it into how they think like a lion would look. He looks like an alien did that with a human. Yeah. And that's the meanest thing I will say, because he's a phenomenal actor.
Oh, and he's great. Bern Gorman's is his name. And you know, I'm trying to look through some of the things.
He was in Doctor Who.
He was in Doctor Who. He was in clearly the first Pacific Rim. He was in what's it called? Dark Knight Rises. He's been in a decent amount of stuff. I mean, he's been in some pretty bad movies too. Looking through, he's been in Fred Claus, The Best Man, Penelope. Penelope. So yeah, he definitely has been in his bad movies, but he's a good actor. But he's never really a lead guy.
Character for him.
This is really strong. So yeah, and he was also, if you guys have ever seen Turn, the Washington Spies AMC show, that was decent. It kind of got weird and I don't know. He's also in Game of Thrones for a couple.
Yeah,
he was Carl Tanner. I don't remember him as that, but I
remember him because his face frightens me so much.
He's one of those people that if you see him, you know him. He's one of those actors that you can't miss him.
Doesn't look like anyone else.
But his character comes into play, not for the first time, but for the first time with some meaning, where they pull the Kaiju Brain and they have it, and he's going through it, and he's like, this came from our universe. It didn't show a breach, and that was a big deal, because a breach would have shown up, and they would have been like, okay, here's what this is. But there hadn't been breaches in 10 years. Yeah. So they're like, this means that there's a human involved. And so they immediately are like, oh, it's Li Wen, Shao Industries, because we see, what's her name? Amara. There we go.
I was going to call her Marabou, so.
That's not her name.
Amara.
Amara is pumped. She's like, we have something here. That Jaeger, which Obsidian Fury has been transported back to the dome, and she's trying to convince all the other cadets, like, hey, we need to go check that out.
It was very Battlestar Galactica up in there.
And here's something, too, and this probably speaks to just how her character is written. We've gone through half the movie and haven't talked about her other than the beginning. Yeah. She was in more of the movie, but it was basically I came in here, no one likes me, they like, I don't belong here, blah, 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 blah. It was boring. Like, her character arc was not that exciting.
They did a good job setting up something that was something we have seen in a million movies and could not pay attention to and still follow.
Yes.
Which was the outsider in a group of cadets. There is the angry female cadet who has to prove herself. There is the goofy male cadet who doesn't really fit in, but everyone likes because he's the heart of the team.
And then there's the Russian.
There's
There's always the Russian.
What was his name? Not Yuri. Not Alexei. It's a very Russian name. I knew someone with that name.
You got like one more and then you'd have it, probably.
Yeah. It's not Vlad. It's a 2-syllable, ends in an I.
Oh, gosh. I think... No, that can't, because he's... Okay, hold on. He's... No, it's not... Is it Vic?
No. Vic is the girl.
No, that's the
Russian.
girl, because Vic for Victoria, but that's not her name.
But if you call her Victoria, she'll be Ilya?
Ilya?
Yeah, Ilya.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't meet a Russian Ilya. I met an American Ilya. That's why I couldn't remember it.
Well, we'll get to it. We have a very important discussion, or probably one of the favorite moments of the movie with Ilya that we'll talk about here in a little bit. But so basically they're going, and very quickly, like, so all of a sudden they're like, okay, the drones are being sent out tonight. Mm-hmm. We need to infiltrate and figure out what's going on. We need to talk to Newt because he knows what's going on. Mm-hmm. So they send Gottlieb to go to find Newt, and these two have this connection from the first movie. They were the both ones that drifted with the Kaiju Brain.
And it was adorable when they decided to send Gottlieb. His reaction was, I have a mission, but you could see the subtext, which is, I have a part in this movie.
Yeah.
Because he really hadn't been in it up till then.
He was basically the connection to the first movie. Like, he was just, hey, he was in the first movie.
Remember this guy? Like, he's still this.
And and absolutely, he's like, I have a mission. You're like, yes, cool.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not just here in the background. But, and then, I don't know how he gets there that quickly, but like that night, and then he shows up.
None of the timeline makes sense.
Timeline at this point is real weird.
You have no idea. They gave the deadline of 48 hours to get the drones active.
Yes. And it was, the whole concept at this point, so that they go to start this whole process. They are trying to activate the drones. We see them kind of shut down the building because they're like, we don't want anybody to be in here who doesn't have clearance. And Gottlieb finds Newt and is like, we've got to go. Something's going wrong. Shao Industries has been found, and the reason why we kind of skipped this is that when Amara and friends were in this, she found the coils for some of the material that was in here was Shao Tech. Yeah. She's like, Shao Industries has something to do with this.
They're the only ones who coil the wires counterclockwise in this specific tubing.
Of course they are, Amara. All right. Well, I guess that wraps that plot hole up. So, yeah, and she gets kicked out, of course, she went in somewhere that she shouldn't be, and
When she cut open a wire, something dripped out and burnt Ilya's arm.
Yeah.
Or was it Ilya?
No,
or
it was
one of the other guys.
It was the Asian one that she got friends with.
Yeah. The buff alpha male Asian guy.
Yeah, I can't remember which, because there were two. I thought there were two Asian.
Yeah, but it was the more buff one who was like the leader.
Ryochi?
He was the Red Ranger of the cadets.
Yes. Yeah. So he gets hurt, and a combination of that and them being where they're not supposed to be, and Amara gets kicked out. She goes, well, hey, like she's a trooper about it. She's like, yeah, okay, I don't belong here anyway, and it's fine. She's more concerned about her friend, and that's great. But she tells about the tech, and so then they go to Shaw Industries, sending Gottlieb. Gottlieb finds Newt, says something's up, and he's like, okay, great, like we need to go, and immediately they get caught. And they go in the elevator, and there's a funny moment. Like, they just, for some reason, these two tiny little white guys are able to beat the hell out of four larger Asian men with, like, a stick.
To be fair, Gottlieb takes on 3 of them.
Yes.
And Newt is still wrestling one when we cut the scene.
Yeah.
We have to assume that Gottlieb helped him with the 4th.
Yeah. And it's, which I think is great, because, like you said earlier, Gottlieb's character is not that important. No. So to give him a moment where he's actually strong enough to take out 3 larger men.
And it's established through the films he needs that cane.
Yeah. Yeah, he's limping around quite a bit.
But for him to turn around and just beat these security guards was a very satisfying scene.
Well, and so this is where we see the drones attack. The drones start attacking, which I thought was actually a really cool moment. So we have these drones that essentially look like Jaegers, a little bit more like robotic. Yeah. You can tell there's no, their faces are
almost all like white plastic looking Apple products.
Yeah, that's true. They very much look like if Apple came out with a Jaeger.
Jaeger.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of cool because you see the I guess you can call it like the brain. That kind of starts to spaz out a little bit, and then all of a sudden, like, this brain overtakes it. Yeah. And it's very much like, to me, what happens when, have you ever played Gears of War? Mm-mm. There's this concept with, there's the bad aliens, but if they get, like, taken over by this like alien or like this like disease, then they start like sprouting like tentacles, and it's like a monster that can kind of becomes even more monstrous. And that's what this was. It, like, you could see like the kaiju kind of working its way through, and it was very like broken bones, like very like monster.
Shattering through the exoskeleton of the Jaeger. That it was like gross looking, but
like
cool.
if they were like hulking out.
Yeah.
Like, almost. Like, it's like they were transforming without really transforming. But it was a cool moment. Like, visually, I thought that was pretty cool.
It could have gone further into body horror, I thought. Because there are parasites on Earth that do control the corpse of the thing that they have been living off of. But because it was a Jaeger and it's just a silly robot, and because they built the drones as a, like, soulless group entity, it wasn't that level of viscerally disturbing that I would have enjoyed but wasn't necessary.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of cool. These two, they have 2 drones, and I don't know why the drones were being transported to the Shatterdome, but they were.
It sounded like they were deploying them to all established military bases as, like, this is where a Jaeger would be anyway.
This protection, or But so these 2 of them show up, and as they are being helicoptered in, they transform and like fall down toward the base and like use the helicopters as like little whips and just like whip them around. And
you see the pilots, the drone pilots, who are all linked together one by one, just convulsing and losing brain function, basically.
And it's like immediately, like we had said, like, so things are going well, like everything's in the green, and then immediately you see one red, and then boom, 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 boom.
Yeah,
Domino
there's no
effect.
Unraveling the mystery of who sent this Jaeger. It's, it was Shaw Industries. Oh my God, the world's ending.
yeah, it was, and the here's the thing too, is that almost immediately we were talking about this elevator scene. They get Newt and Gottlieb get up the elevator. They come out, and Newt's like, I got a back doorway. I figured eventually I was going to want to do this. He goes in, presses like a button, and then it's like, boom, everything's him. It's like, big swerve, which I have to say, like you said earlier, I thought Li Wen was the bad guy. I thought she was the villain. And so when the swerve came, I was not expecting it.
Even they set up Newt to be really sketchy. They did a lot of things to foreshadow that turn. I mean, up to and including him having a alien brain wife that he like mind melds with for pleasure. Yeah. And I still didn't expect.
Well, and like we look back on it, it's a very clear hint.
Yeah.
But outside of the context of him doing that, it doesn't make sense.
They set up Li Wen? Li Wen.
Yeah.
I knew a guy named Li Wen to be the bad guy so strongly, and it's a movie with no subtlety that we believed it.
Yeah, and so everything about Li Wen was she's the villain. Everything like even moments before we find out that Newt's the swerved villain. She's looking and she has this reaction to seeing something that she's like, I'll be in my office. It's like, oh, she's going to her office to see how everything's going to unravel, like her master plan.
Well, it is implied, I thought, that she has realized that her Jaeger has been destroyed and she might be found out, and that's what she needs to go to her office to deal with.
Yeah, I can see that. See that.
That was what I thought, but I have no idea what she was. I think maybe she just had to fart and didn't want to do it in front of everyone.
Maybe
in my fan fiction.
There you go. But yeah, it's weird because we don't. That's one of those we don't get an answer as to what happened. But we do find very quickly that once Newt is the villain, then she comes in and like, what have you done? Like what?
Yeah,
so like
you've ruined my life's work.
Exactly. And so then she immediately jumps from potentially being the villain to being one of the good guys and trying to figure out a way to stop this.
And very quickly her hair is down out of its updo.
And it's luscious.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
just shiny and beautiful.
And she is the only one who has potentially the ability to stop these drones. And we see the drones back at the Shatterdome who are just destroying everything. They have immediately isolated and taken out all of the Jaegers. They have destroyed a lot of. I mean, like the main commander gets destroyed immediately. Like his whole command center gets blown up.
The scene from the promo where he's just screaming. That's his death.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
Yeah, I mean it's very clear that they are trying to destroy every potential way of the humanity fighting back.
Yeah,
and it's because of Li Wen being able to shut down all of the drones that all of our main characters survive, and all the breaches shut because immediately once Newt takes over, they start opening breaches.
Yes,
which is important because that what kind of gets us to our last fourth of the movie because 3 kaiju actually get through. They're all excited. Oh yeah, we shut down all the breaches,
and then
everything gets red.
Oh no.
3 kaiju.
3 kaiju.
And so
what
3
were
kaiju
their
get through.
Levels?
They were 2 4s and a 5.
Right.
And I don't remember the names of them. He gave them names, but
I don't
remember what they were. So yeah, 3 kaiju get through, and they immediately start to piece together things that they didn't figure out over 15 years of war
that don't really actually track with the first movie.
They don't at all.
It just got.
So to explain, they look at the past kaiju attacks and where they happened, and they were tracking their movements. So where did they show up, and then where did they show up next, and where it's like
where are they going?
Where are they going? And they're like, oh, it's Mount Fuji, and then they're like, all right, look at what these 3 that have gotten through, which apparently they just find out, but they've got enough data on these 3 to also track them, and they're like, oh, they're going to Mount Fuji.
It was very much, why were they attacking our coastal cities? Not to wreck the cities, but because the cities were in their way. And I'm like, well, no, if you pop up on the coast of Los Angeles and you're trying to get to Mount Fuji, you don't wreck Los Angeles.
You don't go through LA, yeah.
Which, back to Sydney for just a second. At the opening scene, I was really glad that they rebuilt the Opera House from the first movie.
Yes. They even showed it. They're like, look at this new shiny, exactly looking Opera House.
Oh, no, it's because it's a little different.
Was it?
Rebuilt.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't notice that it was
just
different.
A little different.
Because for me, I looked at it and I was like, oh, it's the Opera House. I didn't notice that was different. That's cool. Mm-hmm. Continuity.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta love it. But yeah, I was a little disappointed that immediately within like 10 minutes of finding out these kaiju had appeared, they're like, oh, they're going to Mount Fuji. Which in years of war with these, they never found that out. Like, well, I just was
to be fair,
not thrilled with that.
All of the kaiju are men, and they wouldn't stop to ask for directions.
So they were going all over the place. There's no way of figuring it out.
There's your 90s comedy for the...
So they and why are they going to Mount Fuji? Well, earlier we find out through Gottlieb that he's messing around with kaiju blood as a form of fuel to kind of fuel his kind of pet project of finding a way of attaching rockets and jet power. Yeah. And he's like, if you combine some of our like rare earth minerals with this blood, it very highly combustible. They react very well. And which is another good swerve, because as soon as Newt finds out about this, he's like, you can't do this. Like, you need to stop doing this. Which he actually, in all reality, would probably think this is a great idea.
Yep.
Burn everything. Because the whole goal is if they get to Mount Fuji, they essentially could sacrifice themselves, these kaiju, to basically explode the Ring of Fire, which I'm like, that's great, around the Pacific Rim. And eventually put out enough poisonous gas that would terraform the Earth for the precursors to be able to inhabit it.
So when they said it would explode around the Pacific Rim, I had a great moment where I thought, Pacific Rim, that's the title of a movie, isn't it? And it took me probably 3 more lines of dialogue in the film to remember, oh, that's the title of this movie.
It was that they said, they never said Uprising though, which I was disappointed. But it's always that Peter Griffin moment where when you hear the name of the movie, they said it, and I'm done. I can leave.
But it was very well placed within dialogue that it did not occur to me that it was the movie I was watching. Yeah,
it was not very. It was very subtle.
Yeah,
very
there
subtle.
Wasn't the wink at the audience. Oh, we called it this.
Where the music changes so subtly. So at this point, they're like, how many do we have left? How many Jaegers do we have left? And they're like, we have 1. And so we're like, well,
of course it's Gypsy for thematic elements.
Everything has to be Gypsy.
Which, do you ever watch Mystery Science Theater 3000?
I've seen a couple episodes, but not probably enough to get a reference.
Gypsy is a robot. She's the one that looks like an old-fashioned vacuum cleaner.
Okay.
And so every time I say Gypsy as a robot, I picture that Gypsy. Which actually, Mystery Science Theater is how I watched a lot of Japanese monster movies.
That's awesome.
It's
maybe that's where they got it. I don't know.
I wonder.
But so then we have a really cheesy montage moment.
Oh, it was amazing.
It was.
It was the robot salvage montage. It was very important.
And you get the 4 Jaegers, the ones that we talked about earlier, who they are like, all right, we're going to fix everything. And they fix everything.
Because this is where, what is her name again?
Amara.
Amara gets reinstated because John Boyega says, oh, well, you built your own Jaeger out of scraps, so you can help us repair these Jaegers before the kaiju get to their objective, like 10 miles away or whatever.
Yeah. The
timeline. Where the timeline completely dies.
It's because they not only are able to completely repair 4 or 3, I guess, and even probably do some repairs to the 4th, but completely repair 3 non-working Jaegers, but also attach jetpacks to them, create enough, because I didn't know they had this much of the, I almost said tiger blood. This much kaiju blood and all these minerals on hand.
Yeah.
To create the fuel and also create the thrusters. And it was just like, okay, everything was just so... Because when you, like they say in South Park, when you have to go a long way in a short amount of time, you do a montage. And they did.
It seemed like a really long montage, though, because I went to the bathroom and came back, and it was at the very end of the montage.
Yeah, the only thing you missed in the, 3-4 minutes you were gone was Jake giving an inspirational speech that was kind of like him talking about how his dad used to give them, and he's not good at them. But then he also ended up giving one in the fact that he said he wasn't good at it. That's it. And then they all got into their Jaegers, and they blasted off.
Yeah. I I came back right for the countdown to blast off the Jaegers, and the theater we're at has reclining seats, and I got to recline my seat perfectly timed to the countdown.
That's cool.
It was a wonderful 4D movie experience.
Well, we got to talk about this blast off because this is where our moment comes in. So you want to go ahead and talk about it?
Well, one thing before the blast off.
Yeah.
The whole time they're talking about how many Jaegers they have left and having to repair them, and using, what is her name again? Amara. I'm the worst at names. Using Amara to repair all of these, they very carefully do not mention Scrapper, the Yeager that she built, that they showed being brought to the base.
Yeah. It shows up almost at the same time she does.
Yeah.
And then very clearly is not so subtly, well, very subtly never talked about.
Yeah.
Ever.
So you're sitting there the whole time, they're like, well, how many Jaegers do you have left? Oh, only Gypsy. And it's like, well, you got a little one.
You've got something there.
You got a thing that's probably still working.
You're like, I don't know.
So you can go on with the blast off.
So we get the blast off, and Ilya, who's our Russian, all of a sudden like starts pressing things, and is it the lull the guy Trollolo there you go. So if you haven't yet watched this, you haven't lived. But you got to go and look up. It's Trollol, and if you start typing that into Google, you will then get this song. And it's a guy singing.
You can also search Russian Lawrence Welk.
There you go. And he starts singing the la 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 la, and the other guy that's with him is like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, my grandma used to play this song for me. It relaxes me." And he's like, "It's creeping me out." And this guy's creepy. He's got this weird look on his face. So check it out if you don't know what we're talking about, and if you do, you know exactly what we're talking about. And it's just a funny moment because this video hasn't been relevant in like 5 years. It was one of the early YouTube movies
when it was viral.
Yeah, it has not been relevant for a long time. So pretty much, again, all the people who watched Power Rangers would have seen this video when it went viral. So then it was a nice little nod. But it's funny because all of the teenagers that were the cadets would have had no idea what this is, and any of the kids and teenagers who went to see this movie would have been like, all right, cool. Like,
I didn't really scope out the audience much to see.
Our row had a pretty varied kind of group of people. I saw like a dad and his 2 kids off to the side of us. There seemed to be like maybe a girl in her like mid-20s and her mom, and like it didn't seem like a traditional sci-fi action type of crowd, but
it's a fun movie.
That's good. It was fun.
Yeah.
So they go, and we have this big fight. The kaiju are destroying Tokyo. The 3 of them have immediate... Which I don't get.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
How long... They had enough time to build all the robots. They did not have enough time to evacuate Tokyo?
They knew they were going to Fuji.
They knew they were going there. Why did they not... And they have these underground shelters people are trying to get to, but it's like... The kaiju strolls into Tokyo and people are like, oh, let's get to shelter now, I guess?
And yeah, absolutely. Every single time we saw this, like, in one particular time, we saw like a ton of people go into one of these like underground pods that was like clearly made for kaiju attacks.
It looked like subterranean parking.
Yeah. And like you get a bunch of them that run in, and there's clearly space in there still, and it's like one person's tapping the elevator closed door, and it's like, that's such a dick move. This guy, like, everyone runs in, and they're like, no, sorry, you're out of luck, and then this monster's foot comes down, and so probably everybody dies, but...
No, again, it very carefully shows you people dodge out of the way.
Oh, that's right.
Even though they are left outside for... kaiju attack in a city that could have been evacuated or gone to the shelter pods.
I don't understand why that is so hard to do.
But also,
just don't get it.
They had these subterranean shelters, but then they kept showing kaiju burrowing through the earth.
Yeah.
So, why?
I don't know. I enjoyed the movie, but there's we're coming up even with more plot holes than I thought there were as we're going through, and it's
there are a lot.
There are quite a lot of them. So eventually the 4 Jaegers show up. We have this big fight between basically they've got the Titan, the 3-person one, and Gypsy Avenger, who go and fight the big one, and then the other 2 go and fight the smaller ones. And it's like, I clearly would have taken, what was the one that I was saying earlier? What's the fastest one? Do you remember that?
I can't ever remember the names, but yeah, the fast one that looks kind of girl-shaped.
That one was kicking all the ass.
Oh yeah, it was amazing.
That one was like...
maneuverable?
Yeah, I want that one on my team. I don't want the big, huge one that can barely swing
Juggernaut.
a Morning Star. There we go. I
sorry.
remember. A Morning Star. Yeah, no, I clearly want her on my team. I keep saying, I want to say Alexa. That's not right. Just keeps making me think of, like, Google stuff.
Well, so honestly, if I were scheduling this fight, I would put her up against the biggest kaiju. Mm-hmm. I would send whoever I think is the weak link on the team to fight one of the small kaiju, and the other 3 would go against one of the small kaiju and try to completely disarm it before, again, teaming up on the other small kaiju.
Well, and that's the thing, is it's like, it was such a back and forth, because immediately it seemed like they, especially the one that we can't remember the name of, but that was the one that Ilya was in, because they go in, like, they're like, or no, it's not. No, it's not.
He's in the weakest one.
The one random one that gets just destroyed.
Yeah. With spare parts, Yeager.
Essentially, yeah. It was, I can't remember, the Guardian or something. I don't remember what it's called. But yeah, I'm not sure what they were trying to do, because it seemed like they were going to win. Like, they were doing really well. And then all of a sudden, they go up against the major one, Gypsy Avenger does, and you see that it is kind of doing the Black Panther thing.
Yeah, it was absolutely a vibranium suit.
Yeah. It's like, no, the head plates, Gottlieb is noticing, he says that the head plates are absorbing every bit of energy and reflecting it back to you, so you're doing no damage to it.
And he would launch it out as a bolt through his tail, which was very cute.
It was adorable. But this is where we get a little over the top with the amount of collateral damage. Yeah. They are literally not just accidentally knocking over buildings. They're using their, like, gravity thing to purposely pull buildings on top of it. And the first one doesn't work, so they throw another 5 or 6 on it before they finally just say, I don't think the buildings are working.
The idea is that their like fist energy is what it's absorbing, so building energy it can't absorb, and they can just knock buildings over on it.
It doesn't at all. Like, you see, like, the blue beams that are, like, coming out, or, like, that kind of show the energy being absorbed. It's not absorbing anything.
Yeah.
So at this point, you see Newt, who is in Tokyo, who never really left.
We don't know how he got to Tokyo.
Yeah, they're like, where's he at? Oh, well, he's in Tokyo.
He just disappeared.
He's gone.
When Li Wen showed up. Mm-hmm. He just kind of vamoosed.
And he shows up, and what were they called? He basically releases all of these little robots.
I don't think they gave him a name. It was just
for some reason I want to say,
there's an automated factory of Shao Enterprises.
Yeah, for some reason I thought that it had some sort of like a name on it. Like, they didn't say a name, but no, it's not worth it.
It was a very Release the Flying Monkeys moment.
Yeah, and it seemed. Here's what they reminded me of. If you've ever seen, like, the second and third Matrix movies, those drones,
squiddy things.
They had, like, these tentacles, and they used these tentacles to graft together. And here's my Power Rangers reference. Yes. Newt and these squid tentacle things create a Kaiju Megazord.
So I have a completely different reference for that, which is the whole time, and it is a long sequence that these little squid monsters are fusing the kaiju. All I could think was, Kaiju Centipede, feed her.
Wow.
It was because it was gruesome.
Yeah. It seemed like it was, like, destroying parts of the body and using other parts.
It ripped them apart.
Yeah, and there was
blood
brutal.
fountaining everywhere. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's bright blue kaiju blood, but it was a gruesome transformation.
And and this is a little disappointing, because you see this in the first trailer. You know this is the ultimate monster they're going to have to fight. And
the
so,
big
like,
baddie.
It's like, why would I don't get trailers anymore. Like, I know that like the Marvel ones with the new Infinity War are being very particular and careful what they show, but I still I haven't seen the more recent one that everyone's talking about. I don't want to see it. I know I'm going to go see the movie. I'm excited to see the movie. I don't want to be spoiled before I even walk in.
Yep.
So yeah, so that's why I was a little disappointed. Is nothing. There was no swerve as far as the monsters. There's no kaiju swerve. There was no. I mean, the biggest swerve is the usage of Scrapper. But yeah, it wasn't. It was not too interesting as far as that went. But he creates this like major kaiju, like the Megazord, whatnot, major kaiju, and it just kicks all the ass. Like its roar alone knocks them over. Like,
which was such a dumb moment, and I love dumb, but
it was stereotypical. Like, you expect a monster. Like, it's the T-Rex in Jurassic Park. After the big reveal, it's going to roar.
Yes. But it just felt like there are so many moments in this movie that they do the stereotypical thing and they embrace it, and then immediately someone has a clever line about it. That was supposed to just be a real moment where it's a large and frightening thing and we're supposed to be scared.
Yeah.
I was waiting for it to be undercut by something, and I was sad that it wasn't.
Well, and they build it up as one thing, and then they don't deliver. It's like, be what you're going to be, or don't be something different. But don't play with my emotions like this.
Yeah, don't toy with me, kaiju.
and so as we're saying, this kaiju just kicks everybody's ass. It literally, it kills one of them immediately. And
the sweet guy,
the nice guy, the Indian kid,
he was going to be a booby doctor.
He was going to be a booby doctor. It's like, my dad's a plastic surgeon. He doesn't just work with boobs.
Like,
and then he even makes a joke about like, I'd much rather be working right now with boobs.
Yep.
Like, me and you and me both, kid.
Yeah, we all would.
I mean, come on. So then you have that one that goes down and essentially starts just picking them off, like just tossing them to the side, and
fatality.
Yeah, I mean, and you really are like, oh crap! Like, I wasn't sure where they were going with this.
I wondered if it was going to be a franchise ender.
It kind of felt that way for a while.
It was very apocalyptic.
And you have Eastwood's character, who I literally like kind of like came back a little bit, like, oh wow, because the tail of the major kaiju,
one of the tails,
it
now has two, once it got fused,
and it like goes straight through the head of the Jaeger gypsy, and it like they both like get out of the way, but it clips Eastwood's character and enough to the point where he's damaged and he's hurt and he's not able to put the drift. He can't drift anymore. And so we found out actually in one of these backstories that Jake was kicked out for trying to prove to his dad that he had enough to take over one of these Jaegers by himself. And he got 2 steps before he passed out. Which, it just shows you like exactly how much mental strain it takes to use one of these things. But he starts trying to do it, and they're like, no, you can't do it.
You can't.
And this is where Amara comes back in. So it was in the Titan, and that's gone down.
All three jettison.
Yeah.
You see the really cool escape pod.
Which were neat. I thought they were... I thought, because you only see one of them get out, I was like, oh, they just killed off a couple more of the kids.
I definitely thought that Vic was going to get it there.
I did not think Vic was making it out of this. She does. Actually, we only lost one of the cadets, which I thought we would have, and probably should have, lost more than one.
I still think we should have lost Reyes.
Yeah.
When the drones go bad, because the drones going bad it only destroyed... There's the commander that we lost.
Yeah, the commander who wasn't... I mean, we realistically only lost one important character in this entire movie. Yeah, there was no
emotional impact.
Yeah. Mora's the... Or, I'm sorry, not... Well, I guess... Mako, Mori, was... Yeah. She's the only one who had any, like, major impact on, like, hey, because she was... Everybody else's is fine.
Yeah. The weird. Indian kid was sad, because he was a fun character through the thing. And you got to see Ilya.
Yeah.
Like... be excited that he survived and then look over.
And that was a cool, not so gruesome, but gruesome enough that it was an impact. You just see his hand kind of almost like acidic, like he looked like he burned.
Was shredded.
He died. You knew he died.
And not pleasantly.
Yeah. So I mean, essentially, we get down to we have Jake in Gypsy Avenger, and Amara is running up, and he's like, "Don't do it! You'll never make it!" And she jumps and falls into this pit, but then his hand, the Jaeger's hand catches her. And
a great mirror. They show the first time she and Boyega try to drift. They show how her family died, and they're at some kind of amusement park on the beach.
Yeah,
and they're out on a wooden structure, and it gets smashed between her and her parents by a kaiju.
Yeah.
And her dad is yelling at her to leap, you can make it. And she's too scared to jump, and the kaiju steps on her family and kills them all.
Good thing you didn't jump.
Yeah.
Kids, don't listen to your dad.
If she had jumped earlier, they would have fled. Yeah. But her family was standing there waiting for her because she couldn't leap. And so now she can leap, but John Boyega is telling her not to because it's a dumb idea.
So then, she does drift with him. They get in, and they realize that there's no way that they are going to be able to do this alone. And then in runs Scrapper, which, again, it was very, very well done about how they kind of buried the lead. They did not let you know that was still around, and you're like, oh, crap, I forgot it. We haven't talked about him in an hour.
I was waiting for it the whole movie because it was so cute. I was sitting there angrily stewing, where's Scrapper?
Well, and because, Scrapper's, he survives, so you know Scrapper's going to be involved in the third one if they... I don't think they're going to make a third one.
I wish they would.
I want them to, and I think... We'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, so Scrapper shows up, and Lee Wen is piloting remotely, right?
No,
or she was actually
in Scrapper. That's why her hair is so wavy, because she is not just turned from her impersonal corporate persona, but she has gotten in the fight personally.
Here's my thing with this, though, and this isn't a filming thing. This isn't the plot. I don't think the actress who played Lee Wen was in the same studio because they're never in the same scene together. Like in that, so you see with Scrapper when he comes to protect, to get them, they go into a pod. They're like, close it, we're out. And then she's running. She's in this little black box probably studio. And they're in another. I don't think... That's why I thought she was remote.
At all. No, they're not. But she's definitely in Scrapper.
Okay. Yeah. And it makes sense, because Scrapper, that ball kind of setup was seen earlier on, so yeah. But yeah, that's why I got the impression is that she was remote, is that they're never...
Well, and
her
whole thing is drones.
Yeah.
And mitigating human loss and increasing response time. Or decreasing response time.
Yeah. So anyways, whether or not it was remote isn't really important. But, well, I guess it kind of is. The fact that she
put herself on the line.
Yeah, it is important.
Because she turned away from automating the factory and
saying, hey, sometimes you gotta have people there.
Automating the factory, the factory that the squid monsters come out of, she makes a point to say that's one of our automated factories, and that's why she doesn't have any idea that Newt has been building these kaiju mini-me's.
Yeah, because he even says, I was able to do a little bit here, a little bit there. I was able to spread it out because 60% of your entire company is run by robots. It's automated.
That's the whole moral of the story is people need to do it.
She had a bigger character arc than our main characters.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, she went from being the villain bad guy who is all about money and all to saving everybody and doing the thing that she was trying to destroy the whole time, which is That's kind of a sad...
She's exactly what Bryce Dallas Howard should have been in Jurassic World. It's the exact same, I am a businesswoman doing this thing and ignoring the realities of nature to...
Well, maybe we'll get in Fallen Kingdom. Probably not.
No,
Probably not.
We are not going to. Calling it right now.
So Scrapper, they brings in... They have... Basically, they look and they're like, all right, the Mega Kaiju is 2 kilometers, which I don't know my conversion, but that's really, really close.
Let's see. The 5K is 3.1 miles.
So a couple miles.
Some amount of math.
It's probably
a mile and a half.
Half a mile long anyway, so it's got to take 4 steps, and so it's 2 kilometers away. And they're like, "Oh, we'll never make it." I'm like, "No shit, you'll never make it. You're across Tokyo, and it's." Basically got to roll over to get into Mount Fuji.
Yeah.
But anyways...
and they show it go on.
Scrapper shows up and is running It's like the kid who's running across this battlefield, like, I got it, guys, I got the rocket thruster.
And it has a rocket thruster that is almost as big as it, that it's trying to carry one-handed.
Mm-hmm. And they even say, like, see, that's the thing, is I hate when, if a movie's going to be ignorant, let it be ignorant. But they, very much like the Dallas Howard, or what is it? Bryce Dallas Howard. I was like, that's not right. Bryce Dallas Howard, where she is wearing these heels in Jurassic World, and it's like, okay, well, if they're gonna just do it, have them do it. But then they're like, oh, it's why are you wearing these heels? Yeah, why the hell are you wearing these heels?
It doesn't make any sense.
It wouldn't work. Scrapper would not be able to get this rocket thruster to them any quicker than they would with the distance that the kaiju had. Like, I don't know. It fuses because she did some stuff to it. Li Wen was able to, in this very small amount of time, do a bunch, and clearly she knows how to do mechanical engineering.
Yeah. Well, all of the scientists in this movie are experts at every science.
Yes.
That is, and that was a thing in the first movie too, where they tried to set up that Newt and Gottlieb were different types of scientists and had to work together, but they each understood the other's science very much. And I'm sorry, but a biochemist is not going to be an expert at astrophysics also automatically.
Exactly. And it undercuts, for how well the first movie did, that's one of the areas it undercuts and kind of just makes assumptions on, which it shouldn't. Anyways.
If a character knows one thing the screenwriter doesn't understand, then they know everything the screenwriter doesn't understand.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's their way of forgetting all the other plot holes and covering up the ones that they think they need to cover. So Scrapper fuses the rocket to Gypsy Avenger's hand, and he's like, Jake's got an idea. He's like, can you get us into the atmosphere? Mm-hmm. Sure, but why? And he's like, we're gonna punch it out. We're like, super punch. And it gets them into the atmosphere, and at that point, it's important to remember that Amara has just used her escape pod to send Eastwood's character out because he's hurting, and she's like, well, the only way to get him out of here safely and quickly is this escape pod. So she sends him out. And so the plan is they're going to rocket up into space, like right above the clouds, and then
the phrase I believe was into the atmosphere.
Into the atmosphere.
Very scientific.
Yes, we're going to throw a scientific word out there. It's going to blast them up into the atmosphere, and then they're going to use they're not going to slow down. They're going to use the force to punch the kaiju and see if that can slow it down and beat it. With all the guns and weapons and bullets and everything that they've used, a punch is apparently going to be enough.
That is completely in keeping with the first movie, where none of your guns are enough. You have to use a sword in the final battle.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I kind of like to an extent.
Well, and it's the same automation is bad. Use the human.
Yeah. I mean, and that
Go back
does.
to punching.
That follows, and I liked that. What I didn't like is that you have... So Scrapper is holding on for dear life and is on Gypsy Avenger when they realize that there is a problem with Jake, John Boyega's character, his escape pod. And they're like, and it's like, knock, 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 like, guess who's hanging on? And then fuses, puts this hole into Gypsy Avenger. They crawl out, and then it, jumps off and Scrapper, escapes.
Which, if you've carefully calculated your entry vector, and then something has to push off of it, that's gonna move the physics that I understand a little bit.
Physics are not important in this movie. Explosions and monsters
They do use a hand thruster to readjust as they enter to make sure their aim's right.
Yes, which that makes sense. But yeah, I don't know.
It makes sense.
But yeah, we have this major space punch from Gypsy Avenger. Major space punch. That's the second time that's happened today, because Jordan at rehearsal today made a Chief reference.
Our Chief Concern.
Chief Concern. there like 10 people are going to listen to this podcast, and one of them is going to know that what we're talking about. But yeah, and then we have this punch that knocks it out, and then it starts to wake up, and you're like, oh my god, they're screwed.
Yeah,
they have nothing left.
That's it.
And then it passes out, and you're like, of course it does. Well, but then you realize it punched it in half. Yeah. Like, okay, yes, it's dead. But so they defeat it. They get out, and they're like, and this is so stupid. Amara's like, oh look, snow. And again, they call attention to how stupid it is by Boyega saying, hold on, we got a giant dead kaiju over here, and you're worried about snow? And then they have a snowball fight, make snow angels, end of the movie.
You missed the schmoopiest part, which is,
yeah.
I've never seen snow.
Who cares?
It was awful.
Like, and that didn't mean anything.
No.
Like, that, I don't know. I don't know. But, and then the movie ended, and I was like, whoa, I looked over, I'm like, okay. Very quickly, though, so we see the title card of, Pacific Rim Uprising, and then it cuts, no, I take that back. We did forget one thing. Eastwood's character finds Newt, because Newt's like, I got a plan B, and then punches him. Okay, that happens, and then we have the snow angels. But still, all very quick, and a quick ending, very just abrupt.
Which I kind of thought Eastwood was dead. I know
I thought he was
got
too.
Launched out in the thing, but I definitely, in my brain, had just marked him off as, meaningful character death.
Yeah, and I kind of would have preferred that. I mean, I don't know, but
he was so good at being a white guy talking to a black man the whole film.
And he was pretty. I mean, he was pretty.
The awkward levels in some moments were just right.
Yeah, it was weird, especially in Eastwood being that person.
Yeah.
But the very end, we have we didn't have an end of credit scene, but we had like a beginning of credit scene where Newt is in custody and he's talking in his like half Newt, half precursor voice about like my masters will come back and they're not going to quit. We're going to destroy your planet. There's nothing you can do. And Boyega says, the next time anybody attacks, it's going to be us, which hints highly at a third installment of the Jaegers going and trying to find a way to breach into the precursor world to end it.
Yes.
Which would make sense. That would be a good final ending to a series. But after seeing this movie, I'm not sure it's going to make enough. But then again, the first one did not make anything.
I really hope it follows in the footsteps of Riddick. And scrapes by with the full 3 movies.
Just to say we finished it.
Yeah, just to wrap things up and have the full trilogy out in the world.
I'm worried that the only way they're going to get that third movie is if they get Del Toro back to do it. And I don't... He's gone and done much better things.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe he'll want to do it for fun. It'll be like he's gone and done all these projects and maybe he just wants to wrap it up. I don't know.
Just
hopefully.
It'd be nice.
So that's it. That's the end of the plot. So before we get into our
abrupt end of the movie,
very quickly, we're done. Have a good night. We'll see you guys later. No, I'm just kidding. We got a couple things to talk about before we wrap it up. Before we look at our final thoughts and rate it, what was a character that you wanted to see more of? Because we had a lot of minor characters and like even major characters who weren't in it as much. So who would you say you wanted more of that you didn't get to see quite enough of?
Ooh. The Commander was a really interesting throwback to Idris Elba's character as this stoic leader.
He was. I agree to that.
But there was almost nothing. You got a few glimpses early on that he seemed like a really likable, good leader, and then he's gone for an hour, and then you get the shot of him screaming as he dies.
Yeah.
And the fact that shot was in the trailer made it seem like he might be a bigger character. So he's not one that there was anything in the movie that made me want to see more of him. But the fact that there wasn't anything in the movie does make me... Maybe my fan fiction will be about him.
There you go. Was it just me, or did he seem like his voice was almost like dubbed? Like anytime he talked, it sounded very like... General Commander guy. Like, it just didn't sound like it would come out of him.
It sounded like a voiceover for G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
I didn't have that dissonance, but it did sound like a voice.
Yeah.
And
It definitely, I can see that.
Yeah. Which maybe he was in more and they ended up cutting him out because it sounded like when the police one showed up at the start.
Yes. Yeah,
and
the
it had
Axel.
the very police sound of voice, which they show people talking through the speakers from their Jaegers, and it sounds like the person who's talking.
Yeah.
So whoever was in that has a voice. Freeze right there. It's weird.
It's that voice from the beginning, the radar. That whoever did that is also the person who's voicing the Axel. Yeah, I think for me, I wanted to see more of just Charlie Day as Newt. In the first movie, he got to be himself. In this movie, it felt like they had him in there because that's what the storyline had.
Yeah.
And they couldn't cast somebody else, and he would like, all right, yeah, I'll do it. But I was not as entertained by his character. Charlie Day is a very specific kind of actor. Anytime he's in something, you know what you're getting, and you're happy with it. If you like him as an actor, you're happy with it.
He does what he does, and he does it well.
Yeah, I just didn't feel like he got any liberties in this movie.
I wanted more Newt Gottlieb moments.
Yeah.
Because that's when I felt
Alice
like...
moments.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's when it's funny. I don't know.
When he's moving the plot, he didn't have any time to do anything else.
Yeah. He wasn't funny. He had one moment to me and that was the moment with his alien brain wife.
Alien brain wife.
I really was disappointed because I love Charlie Day. Love him and everything he's been in. All of the like Going the Distance and Horrible Bosses and Clearly It's Always Sunny. I love him as an actor. He's so funny, and he just didn't deliver anything to me. Yeah, not at all.
I wanted more of John Boyega's desserts. I wanted him to have more snacks through the whole film.
I know. His toppings. Don't mess with his toppings.
Yeah.
Ice cream toppings. Maybe that'll be in the fan fiction, as we'll find out.
Yes.
What other desserts does Jake like?
Are you keeping track at home? Because this is going to be quite the story.
It's going to be. It's probably going to be better than Pacific Rim Uprising, to be honest.
Well, I didn't want to tell you, but I'm actually on board for the third movie.
Oh, what's the title?
Pacific Rim fan fiction.
Fan fiction, the toppings. All right, so let's go ahead and let's see. Rating on a scale of 1 to 5, cases of sriracha. And then your final thoughts as well.
Okay. I am going to give it 3 sriracha.
Okay.
It is exactly in the middle of being a terrible film, but exactly what I wanted. It scratched all my itches for giant robots and giant monsters and manly feelings that you have to express in really awkward terms because you got to get them out there, but you're also the action hero. It was everything I wanted. I liked it a lot, but 3 cases of sriracha. It's a bad movie.
Yeah, I gave it 2.5. It's probably one of the lower ones I've given. I enjoyed it. Like, it is what it is. But I think the other time I gave a low rating was with Geostorm early on. And like with Geostorm, you look at it and you're like, this will be a bad movie. You know that these movies are kind of bad. Pacific Rim is not automatically a bad movie. You know what you're getting because it's an action movie, but the first one broke ground. The first one did things that we hadn't seen in a while, or at least in that style. Visually, it was so much better, and it also had the luxury of not being popular.
Yes.
This one, the expectations were much higher. The moment anybody found out, like, oh my god, they're finally doing a Pacific Rim sequel, you immediately have raised your expectations much higher than this film could have even done justice to. So that was, I wasn't a fan.
I kind of have the opposite, where, again, Fast and Furious, I love it so much, but Too Fast, Too Furious is a completely different beast and much, much more dumb than the Fast and the Furious. So I go into an action sequel expecting a completely different movie. And it's for a much better franchise, the Alien to Aliens shift, where you go from horror to action.
Yeah, I can see that.
it's just a different beast, and it should be.
Well, and I think that they really missed Del Toro on this one.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at what he does, and you look at his style of movies. He has an ability to make anything, literally. I mean, we've seen just recently with Shape of Water, make anything interesting. And not just interesting, but phenomenal.
Compelling.
Yes. He's the reason why Pacific Rim had a following after it came out in theaters, where people started to say, like, oh, this is actually pretty well done. And it wasn't because no one went to see it. It's just because it wasn't a huge movie when it first came out.
Yeah.
You throw in this idea of, trying to put it in a sequel. They put too much on Boyega's shoulders. They're like, oh, this guy was in Star Wars. He's going to be awesome.
People want to see him do sci-fi. And I do.
And yes, well, that's true.
I'm not the typical movie-going audience.
I still need a storyline.
I don't.
Clearly that half case of Sriracha tells us that.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't hate the movie. If you saw the first one, I recommend it. I think it was fun. It didn't anger me. I've seen movies where I'm like, this is shit. This is bad. This wasn't a bad movie. It just wasn't good.
Go in with low expectations. Yeah. Get yourself a nice drink at the beverage station before you go in and have a good time.
Absolutely. So, that wraps us up for this week. Carly, thanks for coming on. I'm glad it's been too long. We're what episode 21. We'll have to get you on again here soon.
Yeah. Have me back.
Absolutely. Next week, we are checking out a movie that I still can't believe that they finally made it. I'm so excited. Ready Player One. I'm an English teacher, and I could not put this book down. So if they screw this up, you are definitely going to hear about this from me. But Ready Player One, I will be reviewing next week. And until then, if you guys want to get in touch with me, you can do that and the podcast through our email. It is driveineventide@gmail.com. Or you can find me on Twitter at driveineventide. Until then, again, Carly, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
And everybody, drive home safe. We'll see you next time.
Bye.